Hello? He says, question mark. Hello, Internet. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but we're pretending that we have music. Welcome to the Meeple Syrup Show. I don't know if you can hear me or not. I'm not a computer technician. Welcome to the show. Tonight we have the illustrious Tim Brown with us. Hello, Tim.
Hello.
How are you tonight?
I'm pretty good.
Excellent, excellent. Hello, Sen.
Hello. Yeah, something weird just happened to our music. I don't know. No, it's okay.
That's okay, it happens. Tonight, we're going from the great white north all the way to the great down under and New Zealand.
Yes, we are. We're going to bring you guys a couple designers from parts unknown. No, from Australia and New Zealand tonight. Kim Brebach is from Australia, and he's the designer of Monstrous, and Shem Phillips is from New Zealand, and he is the designer of one of Tyler's most favorite games as of late. What do you call it?
Awesomeness?
Yeah,
Raiders of the
Oh,
North Sea.
There you go. Yeah, and other than that game, because I know you've been playing that game quite a bit lately, what have you been messing around with lately there, Tyler?
I just today I got a game from Finland called Klask.
Oh, can we sing the Finland song? Do you know the
I
Finland
don't know.
song?
Finland.
There you go. Yeah. Finland. Okay, good. Somebody knows it.
It's like a magnetic table hockey, so that was really cool. And I got some games from Taiwan. One is a spin-off of Werewolf that looks really interesting, and the other one, unlike regular Werewolf where you're voting and people are going to die, everyone has their animals, and you're either going to hide in the woods or hide in the barn. People reveal where they're going to hide, and then whichever one has the most, you vote one of those people to the other side. If you get caught with a wolf, you die. If you're not with a wolf, you live. But every animal has abilities as well. It looks really cool.
It's like 2 rooms and a boom without having to have 2 rooms.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
Two barns instead.
Yeah. 2 barns and a wolf. Something like that. How about you, Tim? What have you been working on lately?
I have almost a micro game. It started as a micro game. It's getting a little bit bigger. I'm calling it Widgets right now, and I've been working on the scoring system for that.
Okay.
I've also been making up some nicer cards for the set. So yeah, I took that to Snakes last week or on Monday.
Okay. Do you always make nice cards for things, or
once the design gets to a point where I feel like it might actually get published, I work a little harder on the graphics for it.
Good. All right. Tyler, what else has been going on with you?
I recently got a job with Canada Post, so
So you'll be delivering my Kickstarters. Awesome.
Well, I will be sorting. I just work in the sorting facility. So as soon as I mentioned this, people were like, "Oh, we can get good rates to ship you our games," and I'm like, "Yeah, I can't control that."
I don't control the entire Canadian government.
Exactly. Not you.
Yeah. Let's see, what have I been playing lately? So I got a couple Kickstarters today. I got Orleans, the deluxe edition from Tasty Minstrel Games, and Andy Van Zant's little game that came with that, which is Button Vikings. More Vikings! And then this weekend I actually just played some old games. I played Caesar and Cleopatra, which is an old 2-player game in the old Cosmos line, which was quite fun to play. I played Yistari. Yis, which is from Yistari, which is really neat to play because I've played it, many moons ago, and the game is about 15 odd years old, and it is still really interesting. There's a lot of neat decisions you have to make. So it goes with these. You have workers that you place. Maybe not really workers because they don't stop anybody from placing in the same area. But when you place them, you have to place one face up and one face down in terms of their value, and those values then get revealed over time, and you can have like majorities in certain areas, and those majorities win you different things. And the scoring mechanism is kind of cool because it's not who has the most, it's who has the relative most of certain things. And there's a marketplace that you can play with the value of. So I really enjoyed playing with that because that was one that we haven't played in a while. And it's nice to go back to some of the old ones and see if they've actually stood the test of time. We played Noir as well, which was a level 99 game, and it's pretty fun. So yeah, I've been working on those, and this week I have to get my Outlanders prototype play tested because that's important. And I've been playing Godzilla online with the designer, well, with the publisher from Toy Vault. So that's what I've been doing. But you know what? We've got some guests coming up, so let's talk about our guests. We have coming to us live from down under, we have Kim right there, and we have our other new friend Shem. There's Kim and Shem. So,
Hey.
Kim, what's up?
Well, summertime here. It's a very, very good season. We've just come out the back of PAX Australia, which is probably the biggest event going on in Australia for tabletop games. As you guys would know, PAX has a lot of people attending, and the board game scene there is massive, much, much bigger than anything else in Australia. So we had about 1,500 people at any given time just packing the rooms playing board games. I was there representing my new job, which is as a publisher for a tabletop games company called Good Games Publishing, and I was looking at a whole lot of designs, submissions, and meeting people and doing that kind of thing. So that was really cool. So I'm in the process now of looking at a whole bunch of submissions and working on things and developing a few games and trying to come to cozy arrangements with people, which is great fun.
Excellent. And Shem, what about you? What are you up to lately?
Lots of playtesting is what I've been doing lately, and just fulfilling Kickstarters and going to our local little conventions we have in New Zealand. That's about it, really. Yeah.
Excellent. So let's start off the questioning. Tyler, why don't you ask a question to our new friends from the other side of the earth?
We actually have a question from the audience already. They would like to know, what is tomorrow like? That's coming from Sir Bob because you guys are ahead of us.
You go first, Shem. You're further ahead.
That's true. That is true.
It was good. Yeah, it's a good day. Yep.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
No, my question is, how long have you both been in the industry? I've played both your games. I've played Raiders of the North Sea, which I love, and I've played Monstrous, which I loved as well. Are those your first big intros into the game world, or how did you start down the path?
You go, Shem.
And I started, I think it's 7 or 8 years ago. Just because I had one game. I didn't know much about the board game community at all, probably nothing about it really. Just growing up playing, classic games. And I had one game that I wanted to publish, so I set out to publish it. And then from there I just keep doing that, making my own games, publishing them. And then, how long has it been? 1.5 years since Kickstarter came to New Zealand. And that really was what sort of boosted me in the industry really. Because unless you're getting picked up by a big publisher in New Zealand, you're not really going to get your games out to America and Europe, really. So yeah, so the first 5 years was just me doing my own little games, almost like kit set versions of the games, and then the last couple of years have been on a massive scale, thanks to Kickstarter and all that.
Kim, what about you?
I've been designing games for about 4 years now, but the scene in Australia in terms of trying to get games published from Australia is really, really limited, and really Kickstarter's opened that up. There haven't really been any publishers in Australia since, until quite recently. So Kickstarter's been a big enabler for us in terms of just being able to overcome that barrier of not being able to pitch publishers directly at conventions and stuff without paying $5,000 to go to a 10-minute pitch session at a convention. So now we're able to basically get our own act together, and Monstrous was actually about the third game I've designed, and it was one where after studying Kickstarter for a long time, I had to make some hard choices about it. It wasn't my primary game, but it was a secondary game that I had an idea for that I thought was interesting, and I thought the scale of it was fairly achievable on Kickstarter. But I also thought it was an opportunity to show that games with deluxe art and really interesting themes mixed in with unusual mechanics could be made to fly on Kickstarter, where perhaps in a normal publishing model you might not have had as much luck getting something like that to fly. So we had a successful Kickstarter with about 1,200 backers, and covered a lot of our costs, and I'm very happy with that's coming along, and that'll be out in sort of global distribution early next year. So what we're really trying to do is use Kickstarter to leapfrog into Australian games into a global stage, and that's where I'm at. More risky in terms of just the financial investment and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, that'll come down the track.
Okay, great. Tim, you have questions?
Yeah, I was wondering, Kim, you were saying that you had like two different things that you were working on together, and one of them was sticking out ahead of the other. And so, go ahead.
Oh no, it's all you.
It's all me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wondering, you were saying you had two designs that you were working on, and one of them was in the background, and then you went and did this one. What made you push the other one back?
It's the scale of it, really. I'm looking at what's feasible on Kickstarter and what's not. I think there's a whole bunch of ecosystem things around Kickstarter that mean that there's a certain amount of there's a certain attitude with Kickstarter backers around what's feasible and what's achievable, even though in theory Kickstarter should be a platform where anything is feasible or achievable if the pitch is good enough. There are these kind of fundamental things about when you're a first-time project creator, you shouldn't expect to get this more than 500 backers, you shouldn't expect to get this or that. They're kind of realistic, and they're sort of talked about within the Kickstarter community, but they're also in some ways false constraints that people enable themselves to believe and then become self-fulfilling prophecies. But with my other game, it's a much larger combative deck builder game. I guess, CCG style, but not collectible at all. It's just a big game in a box that feels like a big Magic draft, but it's direct head-to-head combative game like Magic the Gathering or a Game of Thrones card game. But it needed fundamentally about 150 to 180 pieces of art. And if you've seen Monstrous, you know that I like my art.
Yeah, the art is great in Monstrous.
Yeah, so the vision I have of games is these deeply thematic, very, very immersive games that the look and feel of the games draws you into the gameplay space, and we explore that space, and that's what I'll probably always design those kind of games. And fundamentally, the costs to cover that art in a Kickstarter campaign and invest that up front, I didn't have enough money myself to pay for a lot of that, and I didn't think that Kickstarter would swallow that as a first pitch. So Monstrous was my first pitch, which was the deluxe art that I wanted, but a much smaller volume of it. So I'm able to now present the fact that we can produce a good quality game with fantastic quality art that is immersive thematically and mechanically. And I think when I come to do my second game, I'll have a stronger case to say, I can do this, I can make this happen, and it's going to be a good game, and it's going to look fantastic, and it's going to be a game you want to own. So for me, it was about just getting the sequence of that right, and managing the risk of going with the first big baby that I made and going with a smaller baby that's still pretty potent.
Yeah, excellent. So Serge Piero from the YouTube feed is saying Monstrous has great art, and I would agree. That was one of the first things that struck at me when the Cyclops is reaching out of the box. I think Tyler and I were looking at the art saying, wow, that's really cool. How'd they do that? Very good. Shem, let's talk about what... Oh, there's a Monstrous box art right there. Oh, you missed it.
Do you want to be more? Sorry.
There we go. Yeah, hey, woo. There it is. See the Cyclops reaching out of the box.
Yeah.
Shem, let's talk about what's going on in New Zealand. When we were off air, you were saying that the scene there is not very big. So describe what it's like to be a game designer or even a game player in the land of sheep.
That's Australia. No.
Oh.
No.
We got way more sheep.
Oh, do
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
And why do we always want like New Zealand lamb and things like that?
It's the best.
I have lambs there too.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm just saying. Although I just had lamb chops tonight, and they were from New Zealand, not Australia.
They're the land of kiwi.
No, well, that's true. Yes, Kiwis. Okay.
Yeah. It's an awesome community in New Zealand because obviously it's very small, so everyone knows each other and that sort of thing. We have two main sort of conventions that go on. One that's in our capital called WellyCon that gets sort of 200 to 300 people a year. And they do the occasional sort of mini WellyCons and that kind of stuff. We have War Games by the Bay, which is a 3 sort of part convention. So there's 3 different conventions that happen throughout the year.
Okay.
That's sort of 100 to 200 people. But other than that, it's just, small meetup groups and that sort of thing.
So
Until
the
recently,
market is really quite small, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, very small.
And are you like the only person that's designing that you know of?
No, there's lots of designers. There's Cheeky Parrot Games in Auckland, doing more sort of family-focused or just lighter games, and she's got distribution into Australia, New Zealand, and abroad. There's the Game Endeavour. Yep, Jarrett and Carl.
Cool.
Not as active, but they're still around. And there is Shill Mill in Auckland as well. And they're doing other Kickstarters and things like that. So there's a few of us, but yeah, it's definitely a small bunch.
And Richard Durham is complaining here. Richard is saying that it's 400 to 500, not whatever you said.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what he's saying. I'm just looking at my YouTube feed. I don't know.
It's just rich being rich.
Yeah. So
he wants to mention that's what it is.
Right. So
he's also a good designer. So,
oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yes, of course. So
he's an import, but yeah.
There's a lot going on there that's just kind of bubbling under. That sounds like a really actually exciting place to be in a way where you're sort of riding the wave of what's happening in North America and Europe and things like that. Where in Europe it's been there for the last 20 years or so has been really the rebirth of board gaming, I think, anyways. I mean, or rebirth of board gaming here started in the 90s, and so you guys are coming up to that where your conventions are starting to get the numbers and things like that. Tyler?
Yes, sir.
What questions are on your mind or on the minds of our friends on the YouTube feed?
Speaking of what you were just talking about, breaking through markets, for us as Canadians, we're always in the shadow of, the U.S. has this, the U.S. has this, and like Sen was saying, board gaming-wise, huge in Europe for many years, just last 20 years coming here. What is it like for both of you gentlemen trying to get your stuff into that U.S. market? Because we know what it's like, and we're right next door. What is it like for you guys?
I haven't had much luck with distribution into the States, but then I haven't really tried too much. With Kickstarter, though, I think it's just as easy as if you were in the States, really. Other than maybe, warehousing the games yourself and being able to talk face-to-face to people, I think just the age of the internet, you can kind of be anywhere in the world, really, and do that sort of thing.
Okay, Kim?
Yeah.
Sorry, Kim, what about your impression of getting your game to market in a bigger market than Australia?
I really, the questions, we're talking about the markets of our countries, and our countries are really small. So Australia is like 23 million, New Zealand's about 4 million, and the size of the gaming population you can imagine there. I mean, Australia's the size of California and probably got about the same number of gamers, but the actual domestic markets for selling games are reasonably limited, and you'll see that reflected in Kickstarter figures as well. If you look at any Kickstarter project, you've probably got about 3 to 5% of backers coming from Australia. New Zealand would be under 1%, and that would be fairly consistent across the board unless you had a local project that had a lot of local buzz. But the thing that Kickstarter changes is that it enables any designer from anywhere to take their game all over the place and have them ordered anywhere. So I've sort of pioneered a method called the Send from China method, which is where you get your game made in China and you actually use a Chinese fulfillment company to send it globally at low cost. And this works particularly well for games that are under about 500 grams, under about half a kilogram, which means that normally on Kickstarter you have these very high kind of shipping fees to get a game if you're outside the US, but you get free shipping inside the US. You guys in Canada are used to that. You probably pay an extra 10 or 15 bucks for most games that you order. So part of the thing with Kickstarter is solving that problem, removing that barrier to people backing things, and that's something we've worked hard on with Monstrous and we'll do with all the other games that we do. So there's a few things around Kickstarter that kind of massive levelers about just getting Kickstarter games out. But Kickstarter is just the first stop for us. Our vision really is more about trying to get Australian games to a global retail market, because you can have a 1,200 sale game on Kickstarter, 1,200 backer game on Kickstarter that can shift 20,000 units in retail once you get through to Barnes & Noble and other things. And I know of games like this. And that's kind of our vision, where we're want to get is to forge these kind of international distribution relationships that can take a good Kickstarter game, a good project that has something interesting and something different about it, and take it to the next level at a global retail level. So because Good Games Australia has a distribution company as well, we have a lot of distribution connections back up and down the channels from different distributors around the world. So we're talking with PSI, the big consolidator. We're probably talking with Alliance and a few other guys in each of the key marketplaces to try and find the right distributor partnerships for us, and we'll be taking our games through Kickstarter as well as they can be to kind of muscle them up as far as they can within Kickstarter, and then using those distribution networks to try and get the games out to a global audience. And we're going to be looking at language localization and interesting new markets like Korea and Japan and other things as well. So we have a very remote but kind of global view on what we want to try and achieve. Obviously, we've got a few steps to get there in the first place, get some games out, get them out there, and get a solid reputation. But that's the big vision for us, is to try and shake things up and change things, because Kickstarter is just massively liberating, but it's just the first step.
Right, and you had a question that you wanted to ask Shem. So why don't you go ahead and do that?
Yeah. Shem, I was going to also ask, do you guys in New Zealand have the same sense of Kickstarter being an enabler to reach that global market? And are you thinking in the same ways that I'm thinking in terms of reaching actual retail markets as well?
Yeah, it definitely enables you to send worldwide. Like I said, can't remember if it was on here or off here, that before Kickstarter, that I couldn't really get my games anywhere really, because I was just doing small print runs and things like that. But getting into retail is still a challenge, I think, with or without Kickstarter, because obviously the distributors want to buy bulk amounts of games, and you have to be able to provide them still, really. So you still need that money up front, whereas Kickstarter, I think, the good thing about Kickstarter is you get direct access to your customers. That's probably the best part for me. So you don't have to deal with, just your distributor, just your manufacturer, but you have direct access to, 1,000, 2,000 or more people, which being from a small country is just perfect, really.
Cool.
All right, I got a question for Kim. I actually listened to you on a podcast a couple weeks ago where you were talking about your distribution, your shipping model, which is very groundbreaking and unique, because it's the same price for anywhere in the world, and that's kind of an amazing thing. So what I'm curious about is, how did you go about finding the company that was able to do it and have so few problems with it that you're comfortable to use them?
Sure. It's probably worthwhile to recap what normally happens in a Kickstarter project. Say if you're a US creator, you're making your game in the States, you're doing all the publicity in the States. When you go to get it manufactured, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be manufactured in China. And then most of your thinking is fairly US or North American centric. In terms of probably 50 to 55 or even 60% of Kickstarter backers are typically likely in the board game space to come from the US. But in many projects, it's actually higher because of the barriers that are put in the way. We want to remove those barriers by solving the problem, which is that US creators will make their game in China and then put it on a slow boat to the US and then ship it internationally from the US, where you have very, very high charges for shipping a game back to Australia. It made just, when you live in Australia and not that far from China, it just made a lot more sense to say, why aren't people making their games in China and shipping them directly to all countries from China? Because China obviously is a massive economic powerhouse. I knew they had fulfillment companies. Lots of people in Australia order electronics equipment from China just directly, and you pay like $1 postage for for good quality items. So friends and I just started talking about this problem and the frustration of having horrendously high international shipping fees that would often match or go beyond the actual cost of the game that you might want to get on Kickstarter. It's a massive, massive barrier to backing internationally. So we just started looking around, and I started getting, just Googled a few companies and started talking to a few people. I started talking with Jamie Stegmaier about some options because he's definitely been a pioneer in terms of trying to find and level shipping fees, because he recognized as well that tapping into the international audience is just a bigger market. Why wouldn't you want to do that? And so I eventually settled on this company called Send from China after one of the other companies we looked at just had a few communication and quality control problems. Look, Send from China are good, but they're not a games fulfillment specialist. They're a global fulfillment specialist of small products from China. So we're educating them about games and the requirements of box protection, packaging, all that kind of stuff, and we're working with them, and they're very grateful for that kind of relationship. But they've so far proven to be the best and most willing to work with us in terms of trying to accommodate our needs and the needs of other creators. So at the moment, I'm aware of probably about 20 projects that have shipped out through Send from China. And as I said before, depending on the weight range, you can get pretty much $1 variance no matter where you're sending it in the world. And that's really what our objective was, is to find a company that could do that. The other advantage is it's faster. You ship it from your factory, probably in Shenzhen in China, and it gets delivered door to door to their factory or warehouse in Shenzhen in China, and then within a few days, probably up to a week, it's all sent out by airmail. And so people are starting to receive their games within a week of it hitting their warehouse, and probably up to, on average, 2 weeks, and at the most about a month, which is just way, way, way faster than going by a slow boat to anywhere and then being mailed out again.
It makes so much sense. It's obvious. I don't know why somebody didn't do it before you, to be honest. It's so
because
obvious.
they were right side up instead of upside down.
Yeah.
That's right. We think upside down here, right?
Looking at the Earth from a different angle, right?
That's right, yeah. So it's really neat because the longest wait time is actually it's not even getting the boat across. Sometimes it's waiting to fill a container. Because when you order games in bulk, if you don't have the right product allotment or the right product size to fill a whole container to ship it, you're shipping air and costing the same amount of money because it's cost by container. And so a lot of times publishers will gang ship together, but this makes so much more sense in a lot of ways. Shem, we have a question from the audience. Dave Tomez asks, are there any specific cultural differences, say in New Zealand, that might make a game more or less appealing to your respective areas? What do you think?
To our areas in New Zealand?
Yeah. Is there anything specific about the New Zealand gaming audience that would make a game better for them or worse for them?
I don't think so. No.
No, you're pretty much like everybody else.
We watch American TV. We're very absorbent of all different cultures. So, and yeah, we're a big mix of cultures and races and all sorts. So, probably not really. There's not going to be a game that appeals to Kiwis more than anyone else, I don't think.
Okay.
I have a question. Excuse me. I have a question for you, Shem. A lot of people might not know this, but your current game, Raiders of the North Sea, is actually part of a trilogy, starting with Shipwrights of the North Sea. I was wondering if you could talk to how that idea came about. Was it just, did it start with one game, or was it, hey, I'm going to make three very different games, tie them all together? How did that come about?
It started with just the one game, Shipwrights. I had that game on the shelf for a while because I knew it had a lot of artwork, probably like Monstrous, where you just know it's going to take a long time to illustrate it and a lot of money to do it. So it just sat there for a while until Kickstarter came around, and then I just put it out there, and it did well. So I thought, why not do another one? Pretty much. Mato was awesome to do the artwork, and obviously he got a lot of attention from it. He's now doing lots of other games, so I thought that's, from a business point of view, just smart just to keep doing it. So yeah, it wasn't pre-planned. It was just reactive, really.
You didn't have a grand vision?
No, not that smart.
Like J.R.R. Tolkien or anything like that?
No.
Now, speaking of grand visions, I'll ask you first, Kim, and then Shem, if you could answer. Being from that part of the world, who would be your dream co-designer to work with, whether from Europe or America or even an artist that you'd want to work on your game? or someone to review it.
Well, you did great reviews. So,
well, thank you.
You did a lovely review of Monstrous, and they're so punchy and great. So I like that. My favorite designer is probably Eric Lang.
A fine Canadian.
Yeah. I didn't actually know that, but look, his designs are so thematic, and the mechanics are so integrated with the theme so successfully. I find them immensely satisfying. We're at my gamer group, and many of my friends are big fans of Eric's design, so that'll be awesome down the track at some point to get to that stage.
Yeah.
And
you,
how about yourself, Shem?
I'm yet to do a sort of a not cooperative, but a collaboration game, so I'm not too sure how to handle it, but as far as just like being a fanboy, probably Bruno Fedudi would probably be a big one, I think.
Bruno's also a cool guy. He's not he's not Canadian though. He's French. But actually, Eric and Bruno have been working on games together too. So you're two guys.
These gentlemen are probably more closely related to us than America, because being part of the British Commonwealth and past history, that we're more Australia, New Zealand than we are Americans.
Oh, for sure, 100%. Yeah. It's funny, Chevy Dodd, who works for Portal Games, had posted a picture the other day of a digestive biscuit. And he said, "This is the first time I'm ever having a digestive biscuit." And I said, "Yeah, that's what happens when you go to war with England. You just don't get those digestive biscuits for the last 200 years. Where we've had them forever. You guys have had them forever too."
This is still on sale in supermarkets.
Yes, exactly. There's a couple more questions here from the audience. Let's see where they are. Oh, that one doesn't make sense because Monstrous isn't selling yet. Oh, okay. Kim, Richard Durham asks, what for you gets you excited about one of your game designs to push forward with it rather than another one? So we'll go with Kim first.
I've really only attempted a small handful of them, and I tend to focus very, very heavily on one thing until I'm done with it. My other game, which at the moment is called Fellstar, is fully developed and kind of ready to go. Probably the only thing I need to do is cull it down to a more manageable size, but I had to kind of put that on standby for Monstrous.
And so that was more.
I came up with that concept very, very quickly. Go on.
That was more an economic reason to put that one on hold.
Yeah, look, it was. I didn't choose to put it on hold first. The idea for Monstrous came up very quickly, and the game evolved within a couple of weeks to being the fundamentals of what it is now. And so it just happened really fast, and it was so different being a tactical dexterity game. We combined monster powers and location powers and stuff, that it was so different that we all enjoyed it very much, very quickly, and then the vision of it being in Greek mythology and gods hurling monsters down it just seemed really obvious. So it just seems like something that clicked right in, and I knew I could develop it pretty quickly, and that the number of art pieces required was so much slower that I could get this going really fast. So development took not so long, but all the art and all the Kickstarter organization, that took a ton of time, and that, I learned a lot through that, and I'm still learning. So for me, it wasn't a specific thing between the designs. It was more, as you're saying, about the economic realities of what was feasible, trying to pitch and publish a game from Australia, from the end of the world, you know?
Yeah. I think we have a question for one of the co-hosts.
We do. One of the co-hosts tonight is a game designer, and I loved his game Cortex. I enjoy tile games, matching, colors, shapes. Tim, what are you working on next?
Well, I have a game coming out hopefully next year from Ad Magic. It's a sort of a party game version of, well, I don't want to say, but so it's sort of, you have multiple inventions. You have to try and figure out what order they're in. But in the other games with inventions, they have them very spread out and large time between them, so it's easy to figure out where they are. But these ones are much closer together and I try to choose ones that are a little bit more obscure, but you know what they are, so you can figure out what order to to put them in, but not always. It's not always obvious. Let's see, what else am I working on? I got another one that's that I call Widgets, which is also as an inventions theme, and it's more abstract, where you're playing something, and then depending on what someone else plays, your thing could get obsoleted and taken away. And so I've been working on the scoring system for that one.
Very cool. Tim, about
Yeah.
the one that the one that's going with Ad Magic. That's a kind of cool story in and of itself, and how it kind of got signed there. Just in how we work as a network in Canada. So the Canadian designers, Tim and I are members of a group called the Game Artisans of Canada, and we sort of know each other's games well enough that we can pitch them for each other, or point out, hey, this would fit really well with this other group. Or this publisher? Is there anything like that going on in Australia, Kim?
There's a little bit of talk about it right now. So in Australia now, there's a small group of publishers that have all pretty much started around Kickstarter, except for a couple. There's some guys called Grail Games. So David from Grail Games, he's actually one of the Walker Harding brothers. So there's Phil Walker Harding, who designed Archaeology, Sushi Go, Cacao, and David Walker Harding.
Love Cacao. Sorry,
yeah.
And
guy's a great designer, and
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, good stuff. And David publishes his own games and designs his own games as well. So he's got 101, a bunch of other games, a few of which are on Kickstarter now. And he runs a small publishing company. But again, this is tyranny of distance thing. I think he has some reasonable distribution arrangements in the States. But then there's other new companies like Rule and Make, who are making some really high-quality Kickstarter games as well. Really, really deluxe quality you should check out. It's a couple there, Rise to Power, Entropy. Got a new game they just released called Robots and Rockets.
Yes,
another one called Burger
Simon
Up.
did the art for that, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
No, Si's the designer.
Oh, he's actually. Oh,
as
he
well
did
as
both.
the
Okay.
artist.
Very cool.
Yeah. Talented
Yeah,
guy.
so it sounds like you guys are getting a little network going there as well, which is, I think, where a lot of things will start.
There's definitely a lot of networking happening, and like you guys, we don't have a guild, but we have a Facebook group that's very, very active. It's probably got about 400 or 500 people on it, and there's a lot of discussion on a daily basis in that group. There are regular meetups. We're much more organized now about our city, big city meetups that we have, and following on from PAX, where we had some broader kind of designer industry discussions, there's another steps about setting up a website and a playtesting swap group and blind play testing sessions and that kind of thing. So I think following in the footsteps of what you guys have done, then we're probably just trying to do the same kind of thing in our own way and trying to just get more organized about how we evolve, test, market, and promote Australian games. There's another organization called Board Games Australia as well, and we're sort of working out a relationship between the more designer-oriented tabletop game designers of Australia and Board Games Australia as well, which is more about industry promotion and that kind of thing. So there's a bunch of stuff here that's being sorted out. It's really exciting times. There's a lot of good momentum going into and out of the end of PAX last month. Now the challenge is to just continue that momentum and actually make things happen. So
yeah, excellent.
Exciting there.
Shem, I got a question for you. With you being close to Australia, do you guys ever go over there to bring your stuff to them, like to their market?
Not yet, but I'd really like to. It's obviously probably the more obvious first step, rather than trying to rush to Essen or to whatever else. Just across the ditch is a lot easier, and just similar scene, similar culture. So that's something on my to-do list. Maybe next year or year after, just to go over to PAX or something and just connect up with the Aussies.
Yeah, well, give us a call when you do that, and we'll sort you out. But if you need any help with any distribution stuff in Australia, we can help you with that as well. So
sounds good.
Excellent. It's a really neat vibe that I'm getting from a lot of the smaller places where it is really like lots of elbow grease, lots of hitting the pavement virtually, on the phone or the internet or whatever, but a lot of people doing a lot of good, solid work to get their product out because they believe in their product. they believe in their game, and it's a little bit different over here where the distribution is built in North America, and it is still the hardest thing to do is to get a distribution, of course, but I'm loving hearing what you guys are doing at a very grassroots level in Australia and New Zealand. Do you have any questions there, Mr. Bearded Meeple?
I do. Just tying into what you said, because a lot of the gaming industry over the last, I don't know, 5-6 years, starting up as a hobby aspect, small companies, doing the work, doing this and this. You still have your big companies doing their thing, and I think once people realize, hey, we're all in this together. Yes, they want to sell their product, but once they realize, we're all on the same team, let's help each other out. Do you guys have that synchronicity, shall we say, with small companies in Australia, or is it like, oh, every man for himself, or oh, you're in New Zealand, we got to do our stuff? Like, what's the vibe? Shem, to you.
First, Shem.
No, it's definitely the first thing is just to help each other out. There's no real bad competition or anything like that. So it's a good vibe. I think I haven't had too much sort of contact with the Australian market, but with New Zealand, it's just very, good mates, good friends, just trying to help each other out, really. Yep.
Are there lots of game stores in New Zealand and Australia?
Not New Zealand, no. We have like comic book stores that have games in them sometimes, but there's probably only like 15 or 20 at most of those. Otherwise,
you guys have comic book stores? Just kidding.
Yeah. Exactly.
Ben's buying a plane ticket tomorrow.
But yeah, we have the biggest sort of store is Toy World, but that's just you got your My Little Pony and all that kind of stuff all stuck in one store, and it's really a matter of who owns the store to what games get in there.
Right.
Some of them have no games, some have a huge collection of games, so because they're all individually owned. But then there's only really one, I think there might be 2 distributors within New Zealand. But the market for New Zealand is so tiny compared to what you really need to survive, so you can't just focus on New Zealand.
Mm-hmm. And how about Australia? What's the Australian game store scene like?
It's pretty vibrant, actually. There's a lot of pop-up stores everywhere. I think last I heard, in terms of our distribution reach, we were reaching to about 180 stores that sell tabletop games of some kind or another. And when you extend it out to sort of pop culture, yeah, that Good Games Distribution just handles Australia. Then there's another shell of other stores that are starting there. I guess you'd call them geek stores that sell those, vinyl pops. There's little character dudes plus maybe a few computer games and a few other things. So that's become popular in some of the big retail supercenter type places. So there's a few, and we're also looking at getting games into bookstores. So where there's a good crossover between a games theme and a sort of literary fiction, then bookstores in Australia are willing to do that. We don't really have a Barnes & Noble style network in Australia, but one thing that is unusual about Australia is we have, in addition, within that set of about 180 stores selling games, probably my guess is about 100 are actually dedicated game stores. Maybe I'm overreaching there, but about 20 or so are actual Good Games stores. So Good Games runs a bunch of stores in some of the capital cities of Australia and a franchise of stores. So all up about 20 game stores, and they're really all about play space. There's board game nights, role-playing nights, card game nights, like all the good stores you'll know in Canada or the States.
Mm-hmm.
They're that kind of store, but it's a big chain of them, and there's been a real commitment to kind of grow that chain and help small people who want to set up a game store do that through the sort of franchise model if they want to. And it's backed up by distribution and that kind of thing. So the Good Games publishing company that I'm now the director of is sort of an extension of that. But there's a ton of other good game stores around as well, and there's a lot of really vibrant design scenes within those game stores, and certainly it's not our intent to try and compete with anyone on those sort of grounds. There's enough gamers everywhere that there's really no point really competing terribly with each other. And in terms of being a game publisher trying to get your game to get some sort of cut through, we just face a more insurmountable problem, which is just this massive tyranny of distance. And the bigger problem with the world being flooded by tabletop games, there's no point fighting amongst each other with that kind of thing. You may as well help each other and try and just get noticed at all. So I think that's where our heads in Australia are at right now. There's a lot of collaboration, cooperation, doing whatever we can to help each other, which is it's a great feeling. All the guys in the publishing scene here are good guys and having good fun and helping each other out. It's a really, really good spirited feel.
It's nice to hear. Tyler, you got another question?
Shem, question for you about Raiders of the North Sea. How did you decide? Because it's not, for people that haven't played it, it's not a traditional worker placement. It's a drop-off, pick-up worker placement. But the thing that I like that's different about it, too, is as you progress through the board, you have to have certain requirements to get to that stage. So what my question is was that a specific, or did that specific design come through playtesting, or did you look at worker placement games and say, hey, there's a ton of them out there. How do I make this one different so that it can stand out in the crowd?
With Raiders, I started with the theme first, so I had that from the start, obviously, after Shipwrights, and then I had to make a game that makes you feel like you're raiding. That was basically the objective. So I think I had 5 or 6 different games before I actually got to that mechanic you're talking about. I knew I wanted that kind of worker placement feel. You know, I tried the more traditional way. I tried a few ideas. I think I came up with the progressive, you know, the different coloured workers before I came up with the mechanic. I think. I'm trying to remember back a year or so ago. But the main mechanic was just one of those kind of an idea in the middle of the night kind of thing where it just, what about that? Try that. So and from there it's just, you know, you just develop it and add new things and keep tweaking it. But it was definitely one of those sort of just out of the air kind of ideas, really. Yeah.
Well, at this point I want to do a shout out to Sebastian for teaching me Shipwrights, and then a shout out to Dave Taylor of To the Table, who showed me Raiders of the North Sea at Grand Con. I absolutely loved it, and I do look forward to checking out Explorers when it comes out next spring. Fantastic games, by the way.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Tim. I am sensing that you have a question. Only because the chat told me so.
Right, yes. There's a few questions from the audience, actually. Let's see, we got David Tome is asking, what's the next big thing you'd like to see happen in the gaming industry in your respective areas? So why don't we start with Shem?
The next big thing. Oh, that's a tough one. I think, well, for me, I think it's the distribution is the next big thing for me. I've got the games, I've got the network going on with other designers and with customers. As far as the next big thing for the industry, I have no idea.
Well, actually, there's a question specifically about that as well from ResNet. Is there any distribution point for New Zealand to get any of the game stores, or things just too small? Sorry, is there any distribution point for New Zealand? Like, is
there a point to have distribution in New Zealand? I think there is. I mean, it's more the demand. Because of the community is still very small and very new. There's obviously not much demand for people to walk into Toy World, which is our main store, and say, can I get Citadels, can I get Waterdeep or whatever. That's not really there.
So do you guys use distributors that are mainly used for other things, or do you use distributors that are specifically for
no, we have specific
games,
ones.
toys,
Pixel Park is our main one. He imports all the main titles, and I think there's also one in Auckland, but I can't remember the name. But I mean, a lot of our shopping is done online in New Zealand. We have some good web stores, and then it's just down to the local stores, really. Most of the main cities have 2 or 3, if not more, local stores. They have their games nights and their magic nights and all that kind of stuff. So it's for New Zealand. Just picture it as one small town or city spread right out across a whole bunch of islands, really. It's pretty easy.
I would like to go there. It sounds like fun.
I can answer a little bit about the big thing, and I reckon this would be good for New Zealand as well. It's just more presence in the States as well. I mean, you guys must feel it from Canada, but for us, just organizing, having the product and having a presence in the US convention scene was probably another good thing. So, as I mentioned before, we're going to try and sort out distribution things and try and get some relationships going there, but being able to have a stall of our games and possibly other games as well from Australia and New Zealand at Gen Con, which is pretty much full. So if you need somebody to pay for your stall, come and talk to us. We'll help with that. But look, essentially we want to have a presence of Australian and New Zealand games at those big conventions. And we'll be at Gamma, we'll be at Gen Con hopefully, and we'll try and be at Essen and possibly one or two others next year as well. And obviously we'll be primarily promoting good games stuff, but if there's anything we can do for anyone, we'll look at doing that as well. So there's a bunch of Australians talking about that to just try and get those relationships, because when you're in the games design and publishing scene, you do hear a lot about those personal connections that get made, and sometimes very, very important ones at those big conventions. A lot of stuff happens because people know each other and meet each other and are hanging with each other. And when you're on the other side of the world, that is just a lot harder to happen. So we want to be there and be in that mix, and that's something that we really look forward to happening in 2016.
Kim, that's an interesting point, because Richard Durham is asking you this question. How have the Aussie designers dealt with pitching to outside publishers in the past, and how is that going to change? Are you going to just self-publish continuously, or with your extended presence at conventions in the States and in Europe, are you hoping to pitch some of your games outside of your self-publishing realm?
Yeah, I think we'd probably go for a mix of all of those. I mean, as I said, the isolation here has really forced the creation of these small publishers that are using Kickstarter to some success. I mean, a lot of the games that I mentioned before have had sales of up to 5,000 units and things like that, so it's not insignificant sales. But we, in the past, have had to try and pitch to a publisher, so I've pitched to a few larger publishers that I thought my game designs were about right for, and was asked to come to Gen Con and book a meeting, and just couldn't afford that for a one-off meeting about something. And so the pipelines for making those kind of submissions just don't seem to be available for people outside the States, because, and why would they be? Because if you're a games publisher in the States, you've got 100 people flying at you in a given week with a great game idea. So it's not like you want to open up that pipeline even more, I imagine. So we will be taking game submissions in Australia, and we already have, and we looked at a lot at PAX. All of the major or the small publishers here have submission processes, but we want to try and forge those relationships with other publishers internationally, so that if we do think something's interesting, we might look at publishing partnerships and relationships. And if we go to the States with a bunch of things and get a stall, having people's games with us to help pitch might be something that we can do as well. We have to see how that pans out based on what we get, but we'd be open to looking at that kind of thing as well. So I think things are changing where we've just had to do things ourselves, but we're also open to any sort of ideas. Basically, it's all formative days for us. So.
Yeah, and that's kind of a neat thing as well, is that I think over the last couple of years, you've probably seen this in just games in general, that there seems to be little ripe picking grounds for new games. So for a little while, there was Korean games coming out and Japanese games coming out, and then now we see just kind of them more of a thing that's in the business, as opposed to, oh my God, there's 7 new games and they're all from Korea or all from Japan. Do you think that might happen with, say, Australia or New Zealand in the future? What do you think, Shem? Is New Zealand going to be the next big breeding ground of the next wave of games?
Probably not.
That's a salesman.
Just the population difference, obviously.
Yeah.
We'll always be a small fish in the sea. But I think, in comparison to, like, say, Japan and Korea, obviously there's a different language thing there. So I think most games from Australia and New Zealand will just appear like they're from the US or they're from Canada or wherever. They're not going to feel too much different, I don't think. Because we're not going to unless they're all Aborigine and Māori games, they're not going to look much different, really. Our cultures aren't going to rub off on the games too much.
Well, speaking of that, are there any cultural things that, maybe the Aboriginals have a game that you could bring over to North America? Is there anything like that? What do you think?
Something I'd look at, but I'm not aware of anything yet. Certainly haven't met an Aboriginal game designer. But yeah, if there's something like that, we'd certainly be looking at that. Yeah.
It'd be interesting.
Not aware of anything yet, though.
Yeah. And Shem, have you met Martin Wallace yet?
Yes, yeah, I have.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that he picked up shop and moved everything to New Zealand, but apparently New Zealand's a wonderful place to live. It ranked very highly in the World Index of great places to live. So
it's not bad.
It's not bad.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's almost as good as Australia.
Australia was also fairly high, but I think Canada's still higher than both. But even though we're cold, even though we're very, very cold.
Do you guys sell Canada Dry down there?
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. That's all I need.
That's all we need is Canada Dry, and we're okay. So we're running over time here just because we started late, but I wanted to know, and this is the last question we usually ask everybody. Okay, got that out of the way. Is what one piece of advice would you give a new designer? And let's frame this for you guys specifically. What is one piece of advice you'd give to a new designer in your country about making a splash in the industry? Let's start with Kim.
First of all, you've got to make a good game that's interesting, that stands out, that people want to play. I mean, that's the fundamentals of all games these days. But I think it can really help you to be a good contributor to the community. And so I've been doing that for 4 years now, and people know me from various places around the place. And I really did try and design the whole send from China method for shipping because I thought it was good for half of the world's gaming population, that it would be a useful thing to have that running off the back of Kickstarter. Not that it's my company or anything, but just bringing that to the world. It felt good to be able to do that, and I've had a lot of people say thank you so much for finding that solution and helping to change things up a little bit. So if you can find something or some way to contribute in a big way, I'd also try and find that. That'll help you get some cut through, make some friends, and that kind of thing. And it's just good for networking and giving back to the community, because most people here are kind of happy to help each other.
Mm-hmm. And Shem, what about you? What's the one piece of advice you would give to other New Zealand designers?
I think the key is always to get your games in front of other designers. They'll be the most critical and the most honest about your design. And the best way really would be to get along. If you don't have a community already, just get to the WaliCon or get to the Board Games by the Bay and just rub shoulders with other designers and other gamers. Rather than just showing your family and friends, because they'll always tell you it's a great game. So get along people who can actually contribute to it and make your game from an okay game to a great game is what you're trying to achieve, really. And yeah, just be humble and enjoy what you're doing, really.
Excellent. Tim, do you have any last questions for our audience or for our guests?
Well, I wanted to reiterate that it's kind of nice that that basically the things they were saying are very, very much true world over. Like everybody seems to be, they're really nice to everyone. There's no cutthroat side of this business at all, other than playing in a game. And it's really nice to see that you guys are in agreement about things like you have to network. That's the same no matter where you are. You have to meet the other people around you. Have to meet the people, go to conventions, and yeah, it's just that's basically all I wanted to say. So it's nice to see that things are so similar in the industry across the world.
Excellent.
You guys finding that the same? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's also good to see you guys doing that as well. I mean, I think Canada's really kind of led the way in terms of trying to get game designers from other countries outside the States or Europe, where most of the game design's focused, just being more active and more engaged and sort of helping to make it a more sort of a global cultural economy. So kudos to you guys for really paving the way there, and I think we owe a bit of a debt of gratitude to you for that, and you've organized yourselves very.
Oh, is Kim done? Oh, there he is. He's back. Yeah, actually, I think that you guys are now better organized than we are, and I know that where's that group from, Tim? The one that's in the Scandinavian country? There's another group that's another game artisan group in Scandinavia that is super organized now. Their website's awesome. I can't remember what it is, but I'll find it. Maybe of Denmark? Maybe? I don't know. Anyways, Tyler, last questions.
I just wanted to say, gentlemen, it was nice to meet you. I know you vicariously through your games, and it was nice to chat. You've made 3 friends in Canada, and anyone else watching out there, if they'd like their game talked about or reviewed through Meeple Syrup or Bearded Meeple, send us a message, and maybe we'll see you on the channel one day.
Kim and Shem, are there any last-minute things that you want to plug?
Probably just about Raiders. It came into the California warehouse today. So as of about a week's time, they'll be shipping out from there to Canada and the US. So if you have missed out on the Kickstarter, you can go to garfieldwhip.com and grab a copy there.
Can you spell that for us?
GARPHILL.
Awesome. Okay, and
You
Kim,
said G or J? It's the accent. Sorry.
you're awful.
G.
Kim, is there anything that you want to plug? Last.
If you are an Australian designer, there's a very, very active Facebook group called Tabletop Game Designers of Australia on Facebook. I think we'll probably have it in the show notes in the YouTube thread at some point. So if you are an Australian designer and haven't heard about us yet, you can find us all there. Welcome to the community when you get here. Couple of things for me. Monstrous is shortly going to get sent off to the printer, and I'm very excited about that. It will be delivering a little bit late, but it'll be coming early in the new year, and then it'll be in retail around the world soon after that. And we will have an expansion for it featuring a giant kraken and a whole bunch of other legendary monsters.
Oh, that thing's awesome. The kraken is awesome. I love that thing.
We did a 9-card kraken, so you get a central kraken head and a whole bunch of other kraken tentacle cards that you all throw all over the table and smash everything up. So
yeah, it's great.
Yeah, look forward to that. So there'll be another Kickstarter campaign for that later on. And there's a bunch of other Australian games on Kickstarter right now. Burger Up, Dreary, Hamlet, and a couple of others. So check them out.
It's not Dreary Hamlet like a place that's dreary. It's Dreary and Hamlet?
Dreary Hamlet, yeah.
Okay, excellent. And Tyler would like to sing a song for you, I think.
I come from the land down under.
Let me die.
All right, and on that note,
Thank you.
I think our sound is actually dead on my Soundflower, which is what transfers the sound from my video over to this feed. So I'll have to work on that. So there's not going to be a song today, sorry. Well, except for Tyler's wonderful singing. But on that note, I'd like to say goodbye to everybody. Thanks very much for watching, all our guests and our YouTube friends, and thanks Tim for coming on and Tyler for hosting as well. And we'll see you guys all next week when Daryl should be back, I believe. He's at BGG.con, some convention down in Texas. I don't know.
90% of the game world's there, except us 5 and the people watching.
I can't believe Daryl wasn't there to see that I have the Meeple Syrup shirt.
Oh yes. Just stand up a little bit there, Tim.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. Yeah.
Woo-hoo.
So
Do we get one of those?
It's not an official shirt. It's actually from a company that they made a shirt that just happened to be the name of our show, which was very funny.
And
so
Daryl tweeted it out, and I bought one. So
yeah, there you go. All right, so we'll see you guys all later. Thanks very much for watching the show.
Thanks, guys.
All right, bye.